What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Playbook Sports Podcast, coming to you guys with another free agency video. If you haven't already seen the most recent one, make sure you guys go check that one out, as we will be talking about 8 completely new players. None of the players mentioned in today's video will have been in the last video. You guys, we got Cephs, we got Opal, we got Dantan Sage Bran in the building. Let's just jump right into this, right? There's no point in wasting any time here. And I'm going to kick us off, and I want to start by talking about wide receiver Chris Godwin. First of all, what a great season he was having before his injury. The ankle injury was so brutal. Over 6 games, he had 576 yards and 5 touchdowns. He was absolutely crushing it for Tampa Bay. His 17-game average over his career is about 90 catches a year, 1,100 yards, and 6 touchdowns. I mean, that's really, really good production for him, in my opinion. 28 years old right now. He'll be 29 to start the season, so he's not young, but he's not old by any means at all. And yeah, the injury is, I think, what kind of turns people away from him, because they kind of forgot just how well he was playing. But you also got to remember, this injury he didn't tear his ACL. He didn't pop his Achilles tendon. He dislocated his ankle. And I'm not downplaying a dislocated ankle. That sucks. And it obviously cost him his season. But at the same time, it's not like I expect him to take a big step back in production because this was some huge injury. Like, it sucks. Yeah, he dislocated his ankle. I'm sure it's relocated and will be just fine going forward. And when we talk about the type of contract I think he's going to get, I think that the first place you have to start at when you talk about Chris Godwin's contract is Calvin Ridley's. Calvin Ridley's contract in Tennessee that he signed last offseason. Calvin Ridley signed it at 29, so it's about the same age as Chris Godwin. Signed a 4-year, $92 million deal. They gave him $23 million a year. And do the Titans regret that contract? Maybe. They very well might. $23 million a year for Calvin Ridley. But if I'm Chris Godwin, I don't care if the Titans don't agree with that contract. That's what he got. And if we're just looking at like season productions, Godwin is way better than Calvin Ridley. Just top to bottom. I want to say Calvin Ridley's had one better season than him, and they've both missed time. Calvin Ridley's only had 2 fully healthy seasons in his entire NFL career. So the injury concerns were there for Calvin Ridley as well. So if I'm Chris Godwin, his agent, my floor for my contract is at $23 million a year. Now, do the team who signs him give him 3 years or 4 years? That's a conversation to be had. And I think that the 3 teams that are in the running, I didn't predict anybody to go back to their original team because that's boring. I don't want to do that. It's more likely than not that a lot of these guys go back to their original teams. That just happens, but I don't predict that. I don't enjoy that. First team I want to talk about, Los Angeles Chargers. There's no team that needs receiver help more, arguably, than the Los Angeles Chargers. They've got about $65 million in cap space currently, and they have the probably biggest need at wide receiver. Second team I have on my list here, Washington Commanders. $90 million in cap space, plenty of money to play with. I think they'd be a really good fit for him too, across from Terry McLaurin. Give them 2 stud receivers to play with Jaden Daniels. Like, you have a rookie contract right now, rookie quarterback contract. This is the time to make a run. That's the formula, is have 2 things. Have Patrick Mahomes or have a quarterback on a rookie deal. That's pretty much the best way to build a winning team. And then my third team I've got on here is Denver. I think Denver really needs another wide receiver opposite Courtland Sutton. Troy Franklin and Mims were solid, I suppose, but neither of them are Chris Godwin. And you have Courtland Sutton, and you also have Chris Godwin. I think that those are 2 fantastic receivers for Bo Nix to throw to. Good luck covering both of them. It'd be a real challenge. Ultimately, I am going to predict Chris Godwin, 3 years, $72 million. So about $24 million a year. I think he gets more than Calvin Ridley, and I think you can argue for $25 a year. I think you can argue it. It really depends on how high T. Higgins sets the market. If T. Higgins goes for 30, Chris Godwin's like, yeah, I'll take 28. Thank you. But as it stands today, I'm going to say 24 a year for 3 years, and I've got him going to the Chargers. I think the Chargers saw what happened in the playoffs. Several drop balls all season. Ladd McConkey, really good as a second-round pick. They need a number 1. Chris Godwin has number 1 potential, in my opinion, and he'd be a really good complementary receiver for Ladd McConkey. And then depending on what they do in the draft, if they go tight end, all of a sudden, now you've got some weapons in there, man. And I think that's where I'm going to predict him today as it stands, Chris Godwin, to the Chargers. Where do you guys think Chris Godwin goes? What are your guys' quick thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't dislike the Chargers. They definitely need the help in the weapons department. I just wonder how that would look on the field, because I know McConkey can get lined up in the slot, and that's where Godwin really excels, is in the slot as well. But it's never bad having playmakers. I think another team with a young quarterback They've got plenty of cap space, most in the league actually, and that's the Patriots. I think you need to get Drake May a weapon, and that's a
Mm-hmm.
position where he could be the slot guy. And Godwin can line up anywhere. He did it in his time in Tampa Bay, but his best production was when he was in the slot and had Mike Evans on the outside. Nate, I did think the Commanders was an interesting one because McLaurin does play that X position and the
Mm-hmm.
receiver, so they could move Godwin inside. But I think Patriots is where I'm leaning. Just get Drake May, young quarterback that showed flashes, a good receiver because Chris Godwin is damn good, and the
Yeah,
injury doesn't scare me at all. He's going to produce, and I think the Patriots would benefit getting their young quarterback a stud.
absolutely. Totally agree. Colin, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I like the teams you guys mentioned there. Obviously, all need receiver help. And then I'll go on the flip side because, a lot of Tampa fans are going to be like, why not him coming back to the team? I think that surgence we saw from Jalen McMillan that second half of the year once Godwin went down is the exact reason why Tampa might move on. Because, hey, we got a rookie receiver that is now showing up as, a clear number 2 option behind Mike Evans, who's also aging, obviously. But I like the teams you guys said. Addison, that Patriots one makes a lot of sense, as does someone like the Chargers as well. A team right now that can produce. They have playoff aspirations, maybe even Super Bowl aspirations. Probably not, but go get them another weapon to pair with a generational talent, Justin Herbert. I don't hate that at all.
Okay. Sage?
Yeah, no, I'm going to agree with what Addison said over there about the slot receiver. You got to remember, each receiver is almost like a different position.
Mm-hmm.
So the Chargers, like I feel like Lad McConkey is already like owning that slot position, whereas the Commanders, as you mentioned, they're in need of some help, and I think they're willing to pay out some big bucks,
Oh, yeah.
especially with Godwin. 93 million in cap. They can afford to overspend just a little bit, which every team does in the offseason. And they might be able to outbid someone like the Patriots for this guy to help Jaden Daniels take that next step.
Yeah. Yeah, when I was going through this, I kept thinking, okay, who's gonna overpay for T. Higgins? And then I would take them out of the running for Godwin, which is the only reason why I didn't mention the Patriots. I think the Patriots just give T. Higgins a blank check and say, hey, buddy, you want 30 million? Sold. We've got all the money in the world. So that was why I was like, okay, like the Patriots are a good fit. Absolutely. And maybe I shouldn't do that. But I was just thinking, okay, Washington is also, I think, a good landing spot for T. Higgins. I think T. Higgins would fit really well in Washington if we were talking about him. But that was why I was like, okay, maybe those two teams finish second in the T. Higgins sweepstakes. And they're like, crap, we need a receiver. And they go Chris Godwin. That was where I was kind of going with that one. But I totally agree. I think Washington would be a really good spot for him too. So, all righty, who's got next? Who's got a player for me?
I'll take next.
All right, what you got?
All right, so I've got Nick Bolton for our viewers, all right? The 230-pound, 5'11" linebacker. We're the same size, so I could be in the NFL.
Same level of athlete, same size. Yep.
Literally no difference.
Yeah,
same
no
melanin.
Difference. Yep.
Yeah.
Same amount of melanin.
Same amount of melanin. Yeah, we're solid. But yeah, I'm gonna go Nick Bolton right here. 24 years old, just entering his prime, and as we've seen these past few years, dude is as solid as they come. I really do think he's only going to get better. He's got over 400 tackles over his career. He was on the All-Rookie team. And let's not forget, he comes up in big moments. How many times have we seen in the playoffs he'll make a strip sack? He'll take one back for a touchdown against the Eagles a few years ago. This man is made for the moment. But good thing for a young player, a lot of those guys are looking not only to get paid, but go to a good team. He's already won rings, So he can go just about anywhere. And I think that bodes really, really well for teams like the Commanders, who he can also go for a ring for. But also the other two teams I have on here are the Colts and the Cowboys, who might have a little bit of a, rebuilding process. I chose these teams as they were not, all three of these were not very good against the run. Nick Bolton, especially good against the run.
Yep.
So, we saw with the Cowboys every single week, every single commentator was saying, oh, well, they can run against the Cowboys. How many times did we hear that throughout the entire year? Plug Nick Bolton in there, all of a sudden, it's a different story, That's assuming that Jerry Jones breaks out a checkbook.
Right.
We'll see how that works out. As for the Commanders, we already talked about their $93 million in cap. I think they're going to come up a lot during this video right here.
Yes.
As they should. We've talked about it before. This is the worst team Jaden Daniels is ever going to have. It's only going to get better from here.
Yeah.
So with the Commanders trying to spend money with that defense, that really was the reason they lost in the playoffs. They're going to be looking to spend high money, and I think a lot of it's going to be coming from the secondary. But hey, you're going to need that linebacker, Bobby Wagner. He's getting old. It's a miracle you got this season out of him.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get Nick Bolton over there with at least maybe one more year of Bobby Wagner. Learn under that guy, a Hall of Famer.
Yep.
See what can produce out of that, you know?
Yep.
And then the Colts, obviously, I think he fits just really, really well for the Colts. They have a lot of players that they're playing in that division where Nick Bolton would be like an equalizer almost immediately for them, especially with Joe Mixon there right now. I mean, he'll take out basically anyone in Jacksonville. And then, yeah, I kind of love the idea of him going to the Colts right there and just trying to make a bag.
Yeah, and helping rebuild kind of that defense.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I wrote down Washington was my pick for Bolton, basically because of everything you said. Bobby Wagner, yeah, played a real prominent role for them. He's, 34 years old? You can't expect that forever. You have the cap space. Why not go young here and give him a 4 or 5 year deal to be your starting middle linebacker, your defensive captain for years to come? Line him up next to Frankie Louvu for the next couple of seasons, who played well for them. Nearly gave up 7 points by not even letting the play happen, which is awesome. I love that that's a rule. The rest could say, yeah, just give him the touchdown, whatever. But I like Washington a lot there too. That was my pick for him.
Yeah, Washington's definitely, I would probably assume, the most likely spot for him because it's a contending team, needs a piece. He fits the piece. He can become the face of a defense, like we've said, for years to come. But Sage, I really like that Colts landing spot. Like you said, I think they're going to try to revamp that locker room on the defensive side this year, especially because they're bringing everybody back in Indianapolis. And I think the linebackers is maybe the first spot they do it. And Nick Bolton would definitely be a gigantic, I think, upgrade over Franklin or Speed in Indianapolis. Bolton's a monster. We just pretty much gushed about him this whole time, but rightfully so. So I'll go Colts for a Bob shout out because I think the Colts need it. I mean, they need a new face of that defense, and Bolton with the championship experience would definitely be that.
Colin, anything to add?
Yeah, I love the teams you gave out there, Sage. Obviously, selfishly, I would hope for Dallas. Just their run defense has been putrid. Eric Kendrick's probably gone, and their stud rookie or second-year linebacker already tore his ACL in one of the last weeks of the season. So that would make a lot of sense just to bring another guy in that, is proven talent and can kind of make that happen in the run game. But I'm going to go Washington as well. I know it's probably a cop-out answer, but it just makes too much sense. You look at their team with their cap available. Really on the offensive side, besides maybe bolstering up the offensive line a little bit, maybe getting a tight end if Zach Ertz decides, I'm hanging him up. But it makes sense for their defense to go out and spend some money and really ramp up that defense just to counterpart what Jaden Daniels is able to do on the offensive side. So I'll go Washington for him as well.
Okay, I like it. Colin, let's just keep you going here. What's a player you've got for us? Where you think they're going?
So the first one I'll talk about is near and dear to my heart. Mr. Zach Martin, who at the time was probably the best decision Jerry Jones has made since firing Jimmy Johnson. And that wasn't a great decision. So that's why I'm saying it's his best decision, because it was him or Johnny Manziel. Okay. And instead, you drafted a guy who has more all-pro teams and sacks or holding penalties given up, which is insane.
That's crazy.
Talk about a guy that's getting up there in age. He already contemplated retirement before this last season, even ended the season with an ankle surgery to end his year. It makes it hard because it's like, obviously, if he's going to return to football, I'm praying to God he comes back to Dallas, just because he's one of those guys where you just don't. Nowadays, you see a lot of guys flipping teams. You don't see really one team athletes anymore that sticks with the one team their whole career. But that's what I'm going to do for my pick. I know it's a cop out. I really think it's coming back to Dallas or it's just retiring, because he's made about $113 million in his career, so he doesn't really need money, assuming he's spent it well and saved it well.
Right.
So Zach Martin is all-world talent, probably one of the best Cowboys in recent memory, honestly, just looking at the whole aspect of things. So I'm going to cop out. I'm going to have him returning to Dallas or retiring. I just don't see him going to another team, honestly.
Okay.
But
yeah, it's hard to predict him to go anywhere else. It is, just because that's where he's literally played his whole career. Done it for 10 years there, and he's been so damn good. Wouldn't mind seeing him in the aqua. Wouldn't mind seeing him in the teal and orange. Would love it if we could somehow dig up the money just for a year of him, because literally anybody would be better than Liam Eichenberg. But I do think it's similar to Dre Greenlaw. I just don't know if they go anywhere else. Just one of those guys where he's a career player on this team. It's this or retirement. So I agree with you. I think Cowboys is probably the most likely landing spot for him.
And you'd like to think Jerry would do right by him, but it's Jerry Jones, so you never really know what's going on in that guy's head. But talk about him. The last 3 years, he's taken restructured contracts. Give me the signing bonus versus the annual pay, just to try to help out with the cap. He's been making about 14 to 18 mil the last few years. So if he does return, I expect it to be a very short-term contract, maybe 1 to 2 years at absolute most, probably in that 15 to 18 million as well annually.
Yeah. And just looking at his contract, I pulled it up here real quick. You guys have 4 years of void years left to pay him.
Yeah.
He's gonna get on the against the cap this year, maybe playing for another team. He's
It's like
10.6 million. Next year, 17 million.
Yeah.
And then 4 and 3. So you guys owe him a lot of money still.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's I'm sure he does want to lean to become that Cowboy lifer, but I'll be a little different, just throw out another team, and it's a team that is going to be competing, so maybe that's the one draw is he doesn't see the Super Bowl on the other side of the road if he's on the Cowboys team. I'm going to go Cincinnati Bengals.
Great pick.
On a smaller deal, but that'd strictly be I mean, they have cap space, but because of the opportunity to go help Joe Burrow try to elevate that offensive line and compete for a Super Bowl. I think that maybe is the only opportunity is if a team can convince him they have the aspirations for the Super Bowl, and him being an addition would help that tremendously. But I do like to think he'd probably end up back with that star on his helmet down in Dallas. So I'll go with the Bengals though, just to be a little different, but I lean probably Cowboys if I had to pick gun to my head.
Okay. Sage?
Yeah, I mean, everything Colin was saying made total sense for the Cowboys. But when you brought up Bengals over there, my heart sunk. As a Ravens fan, I was like, I don't like that. And I think they need that veteran leadership, especially with a very, very young line, a very, very young skill group, a very, very young offense in general. Just to bring in a guy like that, I feel like he could also just help a lot clear up those early season woes that they tend to have every year. And that's a guy you want to bring in. I love the Bengals pick.
Yeah.
Agreed. Addison, what's player you got for us?
Yeah, I'll start off with Justin Reed, the safety for the Kansas City Chiefs. When he signed with Kansas City after his Texans start to his career, he signed a 3-year, $31 million deal. And it's funny enough, this is almost an exact repeat of the Tyrann Mathieu situation. I mean, Matthew's going to be a year older. Reed's going to be 28 after the season, and Matthew was 29 after his last stint with Kansas City. And I'm looking around and seeing what Tyrann Mathieu got after his stint with Kansas City, and that was a 3-year, $28 million deal with the New Orleans Saints. And Justin Reed has been a Swiss Army knife for the Kansas City Chiefs defense. I mean, he is a piece that I know they don't want to lose, but I think that's maybe the one place on the defense where you can say if Justin Reed walks, we might be okay because they've invested in the draft. Cook being a second-round pick. They've got Hicks, who's a fourth-round rookie this year, who's made multiple plays on the ball late in the season, multiple turnovers. So maybe they're looking at the situation where, hey, if we can't keep Justin Reed, it'll be all right. And I'm going to lean that way. And I think a division rival is my number one landing spot for him, and that's the Los Angeles Chargers. I think getting him to be a third safety on that defense frees up Derwin James to be able to do anything they want. And maybe they are a little bit of a similar type player, but the fact that you could have two guys that can line up in the box, truly play the safety position, I think it would really elevate the Chargers defense and in turn hurt a division rival. Chargers got over 60 million in cap space, so I think it's just an interesting landing spot, and I think that would just be a double win for the Chargers, hurting the Chiefs, getting a really good player who is a little bit older at 28. And for his contract, I anticipate it almost being similar to what he got from the Chiefs and to what Tyrann Mathieu got from the Saints after he left the Chiefs. And that's around $28 million for 3 years. And it's just because of his age. He's going to be 30 at the end of the contract, but he's going to produce for at least 2 years minimum of that. So I think he's definitely worth the money. Two other teams that I think should at least be interested in this guy. I'm going to go the Arizona Cardinals. I think Gannon getting a piece next to Budda Baker, that's a guy can pretty much be anywhere you want him to be on the defense. He can blitz. He can play coverage. He can lock down a tight end. What do you need him to do? He can do it. I think they've got the cap space to blow, and their defense hasn't really been what it should have been under Gannon. I think that's a piece that can help that. And then I'm obviously going to go homer a little bit. I think the Chicago Bears should consider Justin Reed. I think their safety room is in big time trouble. Jaquan Brisker, I'm sure he's going to play, but having missed multiple games, it was 8 or 9 in a row to end the season with a concussion. And then Kevin Byard's just an older safety, still on contract, but you've got to eventually replace him. I think Justin Reed can maybe be that piece. If they move on from Byard, after one season or if Brisker's health is up in question. It's just dependent because they've only got so much money. $60+ million is obviously a lot for the Bears, but they've got multiple needs. I think Justin Reed could be one of the needs that the Bears address in free agency, but I doubt it. So I'll put them third, but I think they should at least be intrigued by the idea because he's a damn good player. I'm going to go back to the Chargers, though, is where I think he ends up. I think it's about a 3-year deal, $29 million. He almost gets the exact same contract he got from Kansas City, from a division rival who maybe pays a little bit more to hurt the Kansas City Chiefs and get a guy that's won Super Bowls to be a piece of that defense. So I'm going to go Chargers and get them a 3-safety tandem and let it rock on that defense.
Okay. All right. I don't hate that at all. I like the team. I'm gonna just do a little pushback on the number that I think he's gonna get. Because you look at like around the, I like to compare, okay, how much did this guy get? How much did this guy get? And I think Justin Reed is better than Kyle Duggar, safety for the Patriots. I think that's a fair thing to say. And I think he's on Budda Baker's kind of level of safety. And he's obviously a proven winner, right? He's won 2 Super Bowls, going for his 3rd in a row here as the safety on that defense. They both signed their contracts at 28. Duggar got 14 a year, and Budda got 18 a year. So they each got absolutely paid.
Yeah, that's bags. Those are
So
bags.
that I think he gets closer to that $15 million a year. I think 15, maybe pushing 16, I think is where he can argue because he'll be 28 the whole season. You give him a 3-year deal.
He's just going to turn 28 in February.
Right. So I think that he'll be a pretty hot commodity. He's a winner too. Like you can't discount that. And who always loses to the Chiefs in the playoffs? Buffalo Bills. Their starting safeties this year. Taylor Rapp, injured every single season of his career. He has never completed a full season. And Damar Hamlin, free agent. And they did draft Cole Bishop in the 2nd round last year, but Taylor Rapp is getting no money at all. He'd be an easy cut. Damar Hamlin's a free agent. And then you've got Cole Bishop. I think, why not take a piece from the team that always beats you? From the team that is running an awesome defense, and he could bring some of that over. The Bills don't have a ton of cap space right now, but freeing up a little bit of money to bring in someone like Justin Reed, I could see him doing it, saying, well, we can't beat these guys. Why not? Let's bring in some of their pieces and see what we can do. So I am predicting the Bills to go in and swipe a Chiefs piece and maybe even overpay a little bit at that 15, 16 mil a year mark. So that's what I'm going to predict. Sage, what do you think?
Yeah, you beat me to it. I was going to go with the Buffalo Bills right there, just because we've been talking about their safeties all season now, how that can be a liability for them, especially with them losing a huge tandem the year prior, and we see how that affected them. You know, they want to get back to that because that's when they were even more competitive on the defensive side. Sean McDermott is a defensive coach. I don't see why he wouldn't be pining for this.
Agreed. Colin?
I'm going to throw another team out there as well. And I love the teams you guys said. Addison, the Bears, when you said that made so much sense. Nate, being a Dolphins guy, I wouldn't be surprised. Now, granted, price tag, maybe not, but you guys need a safety as well.
Yep.
Buffalo makes a lot of sense. Just take a piece away from a team that just owns you. Yeah. I'll throw another contender out there. Obviously, the first thought that came to mind is maybe going back to the Texans. They need a little bit of help in the back end, not at corner, but at safety. But San Francisco 49ers, I wouldn't be surprised. He just feels like a 49er to me. And I don't know if it's just a color scheme with Kansas City. 22 49ers just looks identical. But I believe I'm going to mispronounce his name horribly, but is it Huifunga?
Talanoa Hufunga.
He's a free agent this year. So, I mean, I know he's a little bit younger than Justin Reed is, but I could see them bringing him in as well. Just a wily vet that's been on winning teams, winning cultures, and just helping out their back end as well.
Yeah, I think that's a great call out. I could absolutely see him going to San Francisco, who's going to be trying to remake that defense a little bit underneath Saleh now, trying to go back to their roots and be a little bit better on the defensive side of the ball. I could definitely see that too. So a lot of landing spots potentially for Justin Reed. Well, I'm gonna stay on the defensive side of the ball and talk about edge rusher Khalil Mack, someone who just continues to produce, man. I mean, hasn't missed a game in 3 seasons. Only had 6 sacks this year, but had 17 the year before. So 23 sacks in 2 years. A lot of it in 23, but whatever. I think that elite production is still in there, even at 34 years old. He's just an absolute freak. He's not a normal human being. And at the very worst, like if you're as an edge rusher, at the very worst you're going to get from him is an elite run-stopping defensive end. He was PFF's 2nd graded edge run defender. He had 2nd in the league in run stops, just excellent at stopping the run all season long. And that's not something that shows up in the stat sheet. So people who are going to think Khalil Mack's washed, only had 6 sacks this year. It's like, okay, but he did not let anybody run on him, and he still ended up with 6 sacks. That is damn impressive. I think he can still be a 3-down guy, but if you want him just for the first two downs, first and second down, get in there, stop the run, and then switch out for a speedy edge rusher, I don't hate that at all either. And yes, I know he's 34 years old, so that's why I'm staying with like a 1-year deal for him, because he did contemplate retirement, but he has come out and said he wants to come out and play 1 more year. I think that when you're looking at contract for him, Brandon Graham got 1 year, $4 million. I think Khalil Mack flies past that. I think he is way better than Brandon Graham was at this point in his career. So then I'm moving on and looking at the Jadeveon Clowney contract from last year. A little bit older, but way more production. Jadeveon Clowney had 2 sacks the year before he got $10 million a year from Carolina. If I'm Khalil Mack, I'm like, yeah, I am way better than that. Way better than that. And I think Khalil Mack probably trying to chase down a ring. Pretty sure he doesn't have one. Correct me if I'm wrong. But trying to go get a Super Bowl still. There's a team, the youngest team in the NFL, made the playoffs this year, lost in the first round, won a playoff game last year. And again, youngest overall team in the NFL, a team that wanted him before he signed with their rival in 2019, the Chicago Bears. What if Green Bay comes calling? And they're like, we need a run-stopping edge defender. They lost, they had a couple guys leave this past season. Rashawn Gary's injured a lot. They need edge help, and he just seems to kind of fit that mold. So I think that Green Bay and Tampa Bay are 2 teams that I'm watching to go after his signature. And ultimately, I'm gonna roll with Green Bay here, and I'm gonna say he gets 1 year, $11 million, and then with incentives. If he gets 10 sacks, there's another $1 million. If he gets the team to the NFC Championship game, there's another $1 million. If they make the Super Bowl, there's $2 million. I think his deal, 1 year, $11 million for your time. You can earn up to $15 million for this year if we reach all of these goals. I think that they incentive big time on this contract, but a chance to give him, good money, show him respect as one of the best edge defenders in the NFL the last 10, 15 years, and get a physical force for a guy that does not miss any time. He just doesn't. Rashawn Gary is unreliable, and he's getting paid so much money, and he misses way too much time. That's not Khalil Mack. He's always on the field. So I'm going to predict 1 year, $11 million, that can go up to $15 million with the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, I've seen people on Packers, just Twitter, social media in general. I don't know if Packers will lean that way just because of the age, and they don't really like to go get older guys like that. But they did. Julius Peppers is a guy that this is just, how is it not the same situation? He comes here, maybe he plays a little bit better than you expected, and it lasts maybe a year or 2 longer than you thought it would. He could definitely help them because Lucas Van Ness has not been what they wanted with the first-round pick on an edge piece. I mean, it would make me sad to see Khalil Mack in that green and yellow, but I think it would help them big time on that defensive side of the ball, Nate. And one thing with the sacks number for Khalil Mack, it can also just be dependent on how the defense uses him. Is he a pocket collapser where his whole goal is just to try to push his guy back as far as he can to help everybody else rush because he's just so damn strong. And the run defense shows that. I think I'm going to go with a different NFC North team. And I don't really know if they particularly need him. I think that just with the losses they've had on their staff this offseason, it can be a piece that maybe he hasn't gotten the Super Bowl that they want, but he's a damn good player. Will fit the culture. He'll come in, go to work day one. I'm going to go with Detroit Lions.
I like that.
Him. Just because the injuries last year, it's just, man, what if that happens again? Khalil Mack's a guy we don't have to play every single down. He can rotate with guys, especially with the young core they have on the defensive line. I do like the incentive heavy contract for Khalil Mack. I wonder how much he'd get because Brandon Graham obviously probably gave a little bit of a hometown discount to those Eagles as well at that point because he just loved the Philly Eagles. But Khalil Mack, I mean, the Lions got capped to spend. Where do they look that we need extreme help? And it's just they lost so many pieces on defense, and Khalil Mack can come be a guy that he's just going to be part of that culture immediately there in Detroit. So I'm just going to lean there, and it just pains that both of these options are NFC North teams.
Yep. He's going to be coming up against those Bears tackles next year, and it's going to be painful to watch. Not necessarily like he's going to dominate, but it's just like, man, you are our guy. Yeah. Sage?
Yeah, so I'm going to go with a team that we haven't really mentioned yet, and I'm going to roll with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for him.
Okay, they were one of my 2.
Yeah. Oh, did you mention them?
Uh-huh.
Oh,
that's all right. That's all right. Yeah, it's all right. Doesn't listen
No,
to me. It's cool.
I'm gonna roll with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Dude is from Fort Pierce, Florida, about 2 hours away from him, right? A lot of players go back to their hometowns, home
Oh, yeah.
states, something like that, at the end of their career. And if they can get the best of both worlds, saying, hey, we'll give you 10 mil, get us 10 sacks,
Mhm.
and then that'll help us propel us to the next level, because we saw how they've signed Shaq Barrett, JPP, all these older guys to
True.
contracts late in their career. It's kind of a tag for them, And
Yeah.
I can see Khalil Mack just being another one of those guys saying, hey, let me chase a ring near my hometown. Family's right next door. Let's get it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that'd be not a bad spot either. I totally agree with that one, especially because they like those heavy-handed edge rushers. They're not signing edge rushers to get 20 sacks. They just don't have that. They like the guys that collapse the pocket, let the linebackers make the plays. That's Khalil Mack to a T. Totally
Absolutely.
could see them making that move. Colin?
Yeah, I like the teams you guys have mentioned so far. Obviously, he's gotten the bag over his career, but he hasn't really gotten that playoff accolades, as you mentioned. I mean, going from the Raiders to the Bears to the Chargers, just not three teams you think of when you think about Super Bowls in recent memory, at least.
Say not
So
yet. Give him time.
give them time. That's right. My LA Chargers.
That's right.
Addison, I really like what you said about Detroit, because if you're looking for that ring or potential chance to get that ring, especially, I mean, you're not going to have the same injuries year after year. That's whenever, people say football, you're kind of lucky. If you're healthy at the end of the year, that's just lucky, because over the span of a season, you're going to take a lot of wear and tear, and you're going to take a lot of injuries. But they went out and got Zadarius Smith, and he was very productive for them this season whenever they got him, especially with Hutchinson going down. So I can see Mac going there for sure. Come in, you don't have to play every down like you mentioned. Just play some critical downs, stop the run, collapse that pocket. I could really see him going to Detroit and fitting that culture well.
Yeah, I'm interested to see who their defensive coordinator is, because this year Khalil Mack was only used in 50% of the defensive snaps, and he still was that good against it. So do they bring him, like, Detroit's a really good shout, especially if they draft a young edge rusher like a Jack Sawyer at the end of the first round, who I love mocking to them, and Detroit fans absolutely hate it, but I just feels like a Detroit Lion, man. Sorry about it. I think he'd be great to help teach Jack Sawyer and also let him rush the passer while he is in on the run stopping plays. And then when he's ready to move on, then Jack Sawyer steps into a full-time role. I think that's a really good shout and would be a real good fit for them too. So I like that. I think NFC North teams, look out. Look out. Sage, let's go on to your second player. Who you got for us?
Yeah, my second player is probably the top running back prospect in this free agency, and that's Najee Harris. Kind of wild that he's the top one, because personally, I view him as like a top 15. And I think he's probably 15th.
Yeah, probably, that's generous.
Right? That's a little generous. He's probably top half of the league. One thing we forget, Najee Harris is yet to have a not 1,000-yard season.
Just crazy.
Which I think every time I hear that, I'm like, how? For a guy that runs a 5'2", 40, and can catch the ball only 2 yards away. And somehow he always gets 1,000 yards. But his backup as well is also an RFA this year. So I think both of them might be gone. And I don't think unless the Steelers want to stay Steelerin and just keep playing mediocre players to be 9-8, 10-7, all those things, they're going to get rid of Najee Harris. Right. And I think Najee Harris has got a few options here. The first one being the Las Vegas Raiders. I think we saw the Raiders absolutely do nothing on the ground this year with Zamir White, with Alexander Madison. They were trotting out there. It was hard to watch at times, and we all knew what it was going to look like, especially when you don't have really a threat of a passing offense. But Las Vegas, they do love those Alabama running backs. They just had Josh Jacobs right before that. Najee Harris is kind of a similar guy, just a little less talented. But I think Las Vegas is a great spot for him. Another spot that I think he's even better than these two running backs, Kareem Hunt and Isaiah Pacheco, is the Kansas City Chiefs. I think he could be a lot better with the Chiefs, and he seems like a Kareem Hunt plus almost. And I feel like you could get him for cheaper than what people might think. I don't think this is nowhere near last year's running back free agent class.
No, God, not even
no
close.
one's getting paid like they were last year. And I think we're going to see that with how cheap he's going to go. And I think the Chiefs are going to be like, you know what? That's a player. We immediately get better. And we see how they're evolving with their offense right now. They're evolving with the short game, and that's what Najee Harris thrives in. So I got Najee Harris going there. And then the last one I have is The little more out there, it's the Minnesota Vikings.
Mm-hmm.
Aaron Jones is also a free agent. They only signed him to a 1 year right there. He's a few years younger than Aaron Jones over there. And I really think he can be someone to elevate that offense. He is, I will say, I don't like many things about Najee Harris. He can block.
Yeah.
He can run block.
Good blocker.
That's one thing he can do. And I think J.J. McCarthy's going to need it. Especially with everyone coming after him, you're going to need a guy that you can just trust to hand the ball off to. And I think that is someone you get in the vet of Najee Harris.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. Team I want to mention is Los Angeles Chargers was a team that I wanted to mention for him just because Dobbins and Edwards are both free agents.
Yeah.
So Kamani Vidal's, I think they're only running back under contract, and Najee Harris is still pretty young. I think he's only 25, 26 maybe. So he's still got some juice in the legs. He's the power running back style that they seem to want to do in Los Angeles. So they were a team that I had listed, but I love the Chiefs shout out. That wasn't a team I'd thought of because they just pluck these guys off the streets. They'll take a running back in the 6th round and he'll be an all-pro his second year. So that's just what they do. But I think he'd be a great he's an excellent pass blocker. That is something he really does have going for him. So I love the Chiefs call out there. I could see that happening in Vegas too. I mean, honestly, all the teams you named were very solid. I could totally see him going to Vegas. Alabama running backs, trying to change the culture there with Pete Carroll. Could totally see that happening.
Yeah, I want to give a small shout out. I think the Bears might be interested in Najee Harris. And it's only because they don't have a second running back, or at least they didn't, at least with how they used the roster last year. Roschon Johnson, sure, he can get carries to the 1 yard line. That's not an NFL running back. That's a big guy. I mean, I like Roschon, but if you want to pair a guy with complete opposite skill set of DeAndre Swift with him, that's Najee Harris, the big power back. DeAndre Swift could be the elusive speed back. So maybe Ben Johnson wants to try to recreate David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs with way worse players, just a little bit. Why not give it a
Genty
shot?
and Najee.
Yeah, I mean, hey, the Bears got Cap, and we'll see what they do. Obviously, closer gets to the draft after free agency, the Bears' plans would get more solidified. But running back is a position of, I think, slight need. Maybe even they need a running back, at least another guy. And I don't think Najee is going to command a monster deal. I don't think he gets over 10 million. If he is, it's going to be right around that.
Yeah,
I think it's going to be a little under that. So if Bears are offering him, 2 years, 16 mil. $17 million, I think I'd be happy with something like that. Well, is that the contract he gets? Who knows? But
that contract you just said, that 2 year, 16 mil, that's exactly what Derrick Henry's making right now.
Yeah.
I mean, hard to ask for more than what he gets.
Yeah, you're not getting more.
I don't know if you can do that. I think he is going to be cheap. He's going to be a cheap guy, probably $6 million a year.
Yeah. So it's like, I think most teams should be interested in a guy that can get multiple carries, be a power back for that price. So he probably will be just at least a little bit of hot commodity. I like the Vikings, Sage. I think that's an interesting piece. Like you said, the pass blocking thing is a big aspect of it, because when you can play on downs when you're not getting the football and impact the team in a positive way, that's huge.
Well, I think there's another running back in this class for free agency that is very Najee-like, but just has a history of injuries. And Javonte Williams is in this class too. And I think wherever Javonte go, like they're almost like the exact same player, if you ask me.
Okay,
we'll see what happens with those two.
Yeah, you guys mentioned a few teams that I really liked. Obviously, the Raiders make a lot of sense, just the need at the position, plus the coach coming in, kind of the old school, we're going to play defense, run the ball. Makes sense for Najee Harris to plug right in. And then, Nate, you mentioned the Chargers. That makes a lot of sense depending what they want to do with Dobbins and Edwards. They might bring them back just because, they did well this year with them. And they obviously know the systems with Greg Roman there. So I could see them going that way as well. Another team I'll mention, but it's kind of a long shot just because of really recent history, not paying a running back and letting him walk. And obviously they have a promising young running back in Tyrone Tracy, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Giants took a flyer on Najee Harris, especially if they go rookie quarterback in the draft in the first round, depending how the draft shakes out. I could see them going there, A, the run blocking aspect, B, 1,000 yards every year. I could see them taking a flyer on him as well, but I don't dislike those AFC West teams you guys mentioned.
Okay, I like it. Kyle, I'm going to stay with you again here and have you jump into your next player.
Next player is a guy I wish my team would have taken this past offseason. That was Javon Kinlaw, who got a 1 year kind of prove it deal from the Jets. Yep. And I know beforehand he was kind of stashed in that loaded defensive line in San Francisco, so his numbers in San Francisco weren't gaudy by any means.
Right.
But if you're looking at defensive tackles, unless your name's Aaron Donald or Jalen Carter, you're not going to see gaudy numbers. Most of the time, you're just plugging the hole.
Right.
This past year, Javon Kinlaw, career high in sacks, career high in tackles, started all 17 games, got his first 2 forced fumbles, first fumble recovery. So I know all those stats, as mentioned, he was kind of behind that big defensive line room in San Francisco, but he really proved it out. I mean, he made like $7.5 million in annual salary this year with the Jets. And I think he makes probably 10 to 12 just moving forward. Talk about a guy that's, 26, 27, first round pick whenever he came into the league. A couple teams I have written down here. First one's Atlanta. I mean, they can never get more help in the interior of their defensive line or at all on their defensive line. They just don't have many guys down there that can really stop that run. And then the other team I mentioned here is Houston. I think they have 2 really good edge rushers and Will Anderson and Daniel Hunter. But both Atlanta's defensive tackles are free agents this year. So I could see them either bringing one or both back or even bringing in Kinlaw. But talking about Houston, I just think that's another playoff caliber team that has aspirations. Javon Kinlaw was played under DeMeco Ryans when he was defensive coordinator in San Francisco. So I don't know if I'm just, getting blinded by that, but I could see him going to Houston as well.
Yeah, Houston's a good shout. I like that. The DeMeco Ryans connection, that's legit. Like, they drafted him, and DeMeco Ryans was their defensive coordinator for his first two or 3 years for the 49ers. So I like that connection a lot. Another team I wanted to mention was the Jacksonville Jaguars, who need help on the defensive line desperately, especially against the run, which is kind of where Kinlaw does his best work. So I like that one, but I love that Texans shout out, because you could run on the Texans all day long. You could. Every team did. And that's a huge problem for them that they've got to figure out. And I think that DeMeco's like, oh yeah, I can get him. He's only 27 years old still. He's only been in the league 5 years, former first-round pick, so the talent's there. I think Houston is an excellent shout-out for him. So I could see him going AFC South. I like that shout-out. Addison, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's probably going to be leaning a team that is competing just because of the age and most likely he wants to compete as a player. I guess it's just dependent on the price tag, but I think he could almost go back home to San Francisco.
Yeah.
Robert Saleh getting there is just another piece. I know he did pretty much just leave, but hey, you went and produced off the squad, and our defense wasn't amazing, and injuries just piled up on us, and we've got some cap space. If they can make it work, why not a reunion back where it all began for him? And I just think that if the situation can work for the contract, I think that'd be a good spot. Robert Saleh getting another piece that was probably influential in at least bringing him there at some point, because 5 years ago, Saleh was involved with the Niners as the DC. So he's obviously liked him, and why not get him back at home? And they got some cap space to work with, and it's just another piece they can add, because they're going to be contending. As much as everyone's down on the Niners, they're going to be right back competing.
They'll be back.
So it's just another piece that they can add to that defense.
100%.
Well, talking about Saleh too, I mean, he was the Jets coach, so who's to say that he just didn't bring Kinlaw directly to the Jets this past year?
He clearly likes him. You know what I mean? He's had him in 2 places.
Yeah. Oh, I think the 49ers are a really good landing spot too for a guy that we didn't talk about and aren't talking about in this video, but DJ Reed from the Jets. Yeah. I think Saleh's just going to bring some of his Jets guys over there and be like, yeah, listen, here's what we're going to do. We're going to fix the defense, and I know that you're good, and I know that you're good. Come on, let's go. Totally see that. Sage, Javon Kinlaw, where you got him going?
Yeah, I've got 2 kind of dark horses over here. One is going to be Denver.
Okay.
Just because Denver they obviously have the secondary to compete, but I think the only thing they're missing is stuff along that line just to really complete that defense and get them even more formidable. And with being on a rookie contract, they got the money because I mean I don't know if they're paying. I think last year was the last year they were paying Russell Wilson.
He's still on the cap for one more year, but it's only like 40.
Is it one more year? Gotcha.
Only 40 as opposed to 89.
Yeah, I still like that over there, especially because he's probably not going to garner a crazy amount of money coming off a 1-year deal. And the other one I have is the Cincinnati Bengals. I think they need any kind of help. Yeah. Any kind of help. And they were getting ran on the entire year. When the only person you have doing anything is Trey Hendrickson, really. If you run the other way, hopefully Javon Kinlaw will be there, and they got 2 guys to stop the run. Yep. But aside from that, I mean, I think they'll take any help they can get, and they'll pay kind of a cheaper player right there with Burrow and Chase's contracts looming.
Yeah, I like that. That'd be a good pickup for them. But yeah, Russell Wilson's 32 against the cap this year. Still the highest paid player on the Broncos roster.
That's crazy.
But it's a lot better than the 88, 89 million he got last year, which is just absurd. And then Addison, we're going to wrap up today's video talking with you about a guy who's not technically a free agent yet. However, it's very unlikely that he stays where he is, but never say never. Let's talk about Aaron Rodgers. Addison, what do you think happens?
Yeah, JTS, Jets, Aaron Rodgers, and I might almost have to disagree that it's unlikely he stays there. I guess if your thought process is retirement, I think that is the chance that he is not on the Jets. But talking about Aaron Rodgers, this last season, he had 3,900 yards, 28 touchdowns, 11 picks. I mean, that's not bad from a 41-year-old quarterback. The big thing with Aaron Rodgers is he's going to turn 42 next year and be 41 for the 13 games before he does turn 42. I mean, his contract is absolutely.
I think you're a year behind. He is. Oh, never mind. Sorry, this was wrong. You're right. He's 41. It said wrong
41, gonna turn 42, but his contract's insane. He signed a 3-year, $112 million contract restructure to get traded to the Jets. He's reworked it a little bit, but basically what it boils down to for me and the Jets is he costs $23.5 million if he is on the roster.
True.
And regardless of if he retires or is cut, he costs them $50 million in dead cap. Then so it's basically doubling what he costs them. I think if you're the Jets, you almost just want the retirement. It's a similar situation to the Broncos with Russ. Let's just get it off, get the Band-Aid off right now, rip it off, because if we keep him, it's just going to continue to hurt us over the future. It might hurt a little less, but if it's longer, I don't like that. We'll see what Aaron Glenn does, what he can convince him. I mean, I don't know if there was one game where Rodgers truly looked like his old self and they lost in overtime to the Dolphins in that game. Rodgers threw for 300 yards in that game and they still lost. So just in his best case scenario, you're getting a 41-year-old quarterback. It's tough. And then you look at Tom Brady, really the only other guy to get contracts this late, being this age. And he got $50 million deal for 2 years with the Bucs. That ain't happening for Rodgers if he was cut. If he did hypothetically get cut, I'd probably lean on a 1-year, $15 to $20 million deal. I guess I'd look at a team like the Vikings, pull a Brett Favre seriously. If they don't get Sam Darnold, the Vikings may be interested in him. I mean, who knows? The G-Men, stay in New York, that'd be disgustingly bad, but it'd sell tickets probably for one season.
Would.
But the Vikings, I guess, is my one team I'll lean if he does get cut. And it would probably be about a $20 million deal just because that's what he'd demand. I think it boils down to that if he's playing football, it's in the Jets uniform, as sad as that is for Jets fans. I'm obviously going to have them winning 10-plus games if he's at quarterback regardless. But I just think it's the front office is going to look around and go, what do we do? And if Aaron's willing to play, we're going to take you because we don't like the other options. So I think that this boils down to he plays another season for the New York Jets. That's pretty much just an abysmal year, start to finish. And that's how he rides off into the sunset. But he's still making all that money because whenever the Jets have talked to him about this in any way, he says, I've already done it a couple times. I'm not budging. This is where I'm at money-wise, and you can deal with it. So as cop-out as it is, I'm going to go. He stays in New York and actually does play because obviously the retirement looms large with him. I'm going to go. He plays another season in New York, and it's bad.
Yeah, it's so funny sometimes to look at these contracts on Spot Track and Over the Cap, if you want to look at it over there too, both great websites. But, they're paying him through 2030. Yeah. And it's not like cheap. Like next year, he's a free agent technically after this season. If he stays one more year, he's a free agent. And they're going to pay him $21 million for the next 2 seasons. Not 25, but for 2026 and 2027, he's $21 million against the cap no matter what you do. And then in 2020, he's still $14 million against the cap. It's crazy. And I'm interested. We should look at the Jets and do more of an in-depth breakdown on what the hell some of these teams are going to do, like the Saints and the Browns and even the Jets, because your highest paid player next year in cap, Devontae Adams, is making $38 million against the cap next year. You can't keep that. But how do you tell Aaron Rodgers, hey, we're cutting your boy? Sorry, we got to save the money. Does Rodgers then not want to come back? Like, are you going to continue to be owned by Aaron Rodgers is something the Jets have to figure out really soon, because they do have a young quarterback on roster in Tyrod Taylor. Young fella, 6 years younger than Rodgers. They've got youth at the position. They need to grow and see if they got something in this guy.
Yeah.
It is about time for the Tyrod Taylor cycle to hit again. You know, he's a starter every 3 years.
Yep, he's due. He's due for a good run. I do think Rodgers. I agree. Listen. Let's just complete the Favre timeline. Let's just do it again. Go to Minnesota. Take a lower deal, $15 million. You're signing to be the backup to JJ McCarthy. I mean, as much as I like to give Aaron Rodgers crap because he's a Jet, as soon as he takes off the green, I'm all in on Aaron Rodgers again. As soon as he's not a Jet anymore, I'm like, okay, maybe he's got some juice left.
Yeah.
But as long as he's on the Jets, he's the worst quarterback in the NFL. Don't care what anybody has to say about it. But I wouldn't hate that for Minnesota. They've got a competing roster. If J.J. McCarthy gets hurt again and you let Sam Darnold go, at least you can sell your fan base on, okay, we've still got someone in the building that can throw the ball to Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. And we've got a good offensive line. And we're not dysfunctional like the Jets. We're a decent organization, I'd like to think. I think that would be a good way to offset the potential disappointment for fans of letting Sam Darnold walk after the season he just had.
Maybe it's just because he's a Jet and I love him so much because of that. But I think if he went to Minnesota, there legitimately be talks of if he was the starter week 1.
It would be a conversation for sure.
JJ is young. What is so bad about him having a Jordan Love-esque career where he doesn't play till year 4? He's developed behind the scenes with Kevin O'Connell. I don't know if that's what they want. I'm assuming they're going to play him next year, and that's the plan. But if they go the Aaron Rodgers route, if he becomes available, if it's for the right price, I don't completely hate it because then he can come there, at least mentor, and everyone can rag on him all he wants. Jordan Love praises that man for what he's done, what he did for him in his time in Green Bay, and he says he loves him. So he clearly was willing to be that guy, even in a situation where, I mean, he's openly talked about it. He didn't want to be Favre to himself. So he did help Jordan Love along the way, and he could do it again with JJ. And I mean, Minnesota says, hey, you did it for Love, at least enough to get him paid $50+ million. Do it for our guy.
Yeah, him going to the Jets really hurt because I really always liked him. I never had anything against Aaron Rodgers in his time in Green Bay. I really didn't. But as soon as you put on that sickening green and white uniform, you're the devil to me. I hate you. Yeah. And I will always hate you. Now, Tom Brady was different. Like, as soon as he left the Patriots, like, I don't care. You tortured me for 20 years. You deserve the chair. But that's not for Aaron Rodgers because he was a Packer for so long. And
I've got Stockholm syndrome with Rodgers. I've fallen in love with my abuser because I love him on the Jets, baby. I love him.
Ugh. All right, what do you guys think? Colin, what do you think about Aaron Rodgers? What's he doing?
Well, hopefully going into a dark hole and never seeing him again, because I hate Aaron Rodgers for what he does to my team, much like he did to your team, Addison, back when he was in that division.
And my team twice this year. His best 2 games came against us because, of course, they did.
Yeah, he's a dick. He just sucks. Aaron Rodgers sucks.
Yeah.
But talking about the cap hit and everything, it wouldn't surprise me if he went back to the Jets just to try and help out with that differential and what it would cost him to keep him versus get rid of him. And then you look at some other spots for quarterbacks, you know, obviously dependent on NFL draft. But obviously like Cleveland and New Orleans, those are just not places he's probably going to want to go. Yeah. Just doesn't make any sense. The Giants are interesting depending what they do draft wise. If they get a younger guy, maybe they, you know, are interested in Rodgers to help mentor for that 1 year. Or even like the Raiders. I wouldn't be surprised if he went out there for 1 year. Although it'd be funny because Devontae just got traded.
Yeah, they can't re-sign Devontae.
So I'm not certain really with Aaron Rodgers kind of where he's headed. Didn't the Jets come out and say like late in the year, like Rodgers will not be back next year?
So there was a lot of talks like Aaron Rodgers and Diana Russini. Diana Russini and Aaron Rodgers pretty much hate each other because she tells things and he's like, I never said that. It's like, well, you've been kind of known to lie just a little bit. So I'm thinking maybe you did, but it was that ownership was planning a future without Aaron Rodgers. They're planning on next season without him. And they didn't want because let's be honest, if you have Aaron Rodgers, you also now have to have Allen Lazard. You have to have you have to keep Nat Hackett on staff. You know, Aaron Glenn's going to be a little bit hamstrung by that. And it's like, do you want a new coach and GM to come in and have to bend the knee to Aaron Rodgers? Because that's just what he's shown to do. He wants his guys in the building. And I get that, right? I understand that to a degree. Like, he has played with Devontae Adams. He's played with Allen Lazard. He's played with all these guys. He has a great relationship with them, and he wants them in the building. But they haven't won together. They haven't won a single thing as a group. It's like, why would we continue to let this guy hold us hostage? I think the Jets have a lot of questions to answer this offseason on what they want to do there.
Yeah, they've really sort of screwed Aaron Glenn because just my question of this was, so then what's the alternative? And that's getting rid of him. So now you double his dead money hit, but you're ripping off the Band-Aid, which is good. But it's like, man, you're really giving Aaron Glenn a pile of shit for his first couple years. And those are big years if he wants to be the coach for a decade. which is like things go great. That's what it would be.
Right.
So it's just, are they really sold on Glenn and they're going to let him pass? Because if they do move on, because then it's also they're getting rid of Adams and everything they're going to have to do, it's going to really screw them for these couple of years.
Yeah.
They've probably told Glenn, we get what we've done. Come here and get it right so that when we have the opportunity, we're going to go all in again.
Right. Yeah. Their cap space situation is they're okay. They're at like 20 million a cap. But then if you start getting rid of players, like the cap hit goes up, Aaron Rodgers won't be there and still making money. And you've got guys to pay, man. You've got young talent to pay. You've got to pay Sauce Gardner. You've got to pay Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, Jermaine Johnson. Will McDonald looked really good this year. It's like you've drafted well, but you have to be able to pay them. Otherwise, who cares how well you drafted? They're in a tough spot. We need to talk more about the Jets because I enjoy it. I enjoy this pain. It makes me happy. I love it. I'm a sicko. Sage, where do you think Rodgers ends up?
Yeah, honestly, I'm kind of with Colin. Like, I just hope he goes away forever. He hasn't tormented me like he has you guys. Thankfully, only have to play him like once every 4 years usually.
Future Steeler, Aaron Rodgers.
I'd love that. I'd love that. Let's make that happen.
Yeah. There we go. Let's get him to Pittsburgh.
No, for real, I would love for him to just go away. I think that is what's going to happen too. They brought in Aaron Glenn for a reason, and I think it's because he's like, hey, I'm going to get shit straight. And Aaron Glenn, even in his interview, he left without a contract. Spent 24 hours without a contract. Said I needed to go talk to people. I need to go figure it out myself. And then he came back and he's like, okay, I agree. And I'm assuming a lot of that was probably contingent on Aaron Rodgers. I don't see why it wouldn't be. That's probably the first conversation that comes up with every single one of those head coaching interviews. And if he doesn't have a real way to deal with the situation, and part one of that's probably going to be Nathaniel Hackett leaving, chopped right off the bat.
Gotta be.
And I'm surprised it hasn't happened already. I'm waiting for that tweet.
That has to happen. He has to go.
Yeah, and if it doesn't, I mean, I'm really disappointed in Aaron Glenn, but I think he's going to be done for after that because how many other teams are going to allow him to bring a posse with him?
Right. None.
I really don't think there's a team out there right now that's desperate enough.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Not right now. Yeah, they're in a tough spot, man. They're in a tough spot, Jets fans, let us know in the comments what the hell you guys are going to do. I really think, like, just looking at teams' cap spaces here, like, we really should eventually, not today, but going forward and getting into the offseason, I want to talk about what the Saints are going to do at $50 million over the cap, what the Browns are going to do at about $45 million over the cap, and what the Jets are going to do. Like, there's just some teams where it's like, you guys got to figure this stuff out. You're in a bad spot, and you got to figure it out. Do you hard reset, or do you just, like, why on earth do the Saints continue to kick this can down the road? I don't understand the thinking there. But again, that's a topic for another day that we will absolutely get into. But that wraps up today's free agent video. Again, we've only talked about 16 potential free agents, so there will be many more videos to come. And that will be in conjunction with all of our draft content. We will begin having individual player breakdowns coming out for you guys. I've got a Will Campbell one coming out right now. And tell you what, Will Campbell gives me Liam Eichenberg vibes. I'm just saying it. Keep an eye out for that. But keep an eye on that. And also, I'm going to come up with a bully list, the 2025 draft. Top 10 bullies. You want dogs on your team? They're going to be on this list if they're a dog. Because there are guys that look good, but they're not a dog. I want dogs. So keep an eye out for those videos. Again, it's just going to be content. We love the NFL. We love the offseason and the regular season. Can't get enough of this stuff, man. Even though the Chiefs win the Super Bowl every year. Who cares? That's all we've got for you guys today. We'll see you all in the next one.
Peace.